Hello, Mithril here once again, getting back to Mag Mammal 2, and it's time for the judge commentary on the last few stages we just played, starting with disqualified place, Beat 28's Bouncy Castle. Snow and Pyro. Oh my god, this level is the most unfocused thing in the universe, and I love it for that. It just takes its gimmick and runs with it. There's like half the enemies in the game used, and they're just bouncing up and down everywhere, and it's the dumbest thing ever. My experience with playing the level was basically just, oh my god, it's this enemy. Oh no, how is it going to use this? It just keeps you on your toes, and it's just so great. I do have some issues with the design though, namely the first section and the boss. The first section is by far the weakest part of the level, mostly because of the Sniper Joe setup, which just takes a literal eternity to get through, and it's really difficult to actually take care of. The level really picks up after it though, because it really just runs with the gimmick. There's alternate paths and tons of stuff, and even with how wacky the level gets with its theme jumping all over the place, and it using like half the dev kit enemies, it still manages to create coherent gameplay with it, mostly because the rooms themselves have specific ideas, and it isn't just a free-for-all for the whole level. Fave is definitely the Nightman room. It's just ridiculously fun to just have so much bouncing. Boss though, I'm not a huge fan of. The raining bomb attack is fine, but the shield attack seems very inconsistent to actually dodge, because you can't guarantee that the attack and the Bouncy Castle gimmick will line up with its timing. The good definitely outweighs the bad though, and it's a really fun level. Jupy Hornet. I'm sorry, but I don't think this gimmick was thought through enough. The bounciness often sends you flying straight into enemy attacks and vice versa. There also didn't seem to be a pattern between the times of bounciness, making it even harder to get around. It felt like the stage was made normally, and then the bounce effect was added later. Angel. Unfortunately, most of my enjoyment in this level got quickly overshadowed by the unpredictable nature of the Bouncy Castle, which lies both at the core of the level, but is also what makes it hard for me to enjoy the level to its fullest. While I love the bouncing effects and really like the setups you provide that are built around this mechanic, such as in the opening room or the fan area of the castle section, big chunks of the level didn't seem to be particularly built around the mechanic. Aside from that, if I were able to predict the timing and height of my jumps more accurately, planning around the enemy's bounces would have been a lot easier and more consistent, making the level overall feel fairer and more strategically oriented. All this needs is a bit more telegraphing as to when a bounce happens. Taking away the initial bounce's effect and having it purely be visual might be enough. As it stands though, while I like the concept of the level and had some silly fun by just bouncing all over the place, my method for actually advancing in this level is staying away from the ground as much as possible, and otherwise playing the level like any other. Gariri. Although the idea behind this level is really interesting, it ironically ruins it for me. There's generally little wrong with the level itself, it looks pretty, the level design is fair, it's fun overall, but having Mega Man constantly bounce around makes it hard to make jumps over pits or hit enemies, and shortly after you find yourself tired from all of this. Honestly, I feel like removing the main gimmick altogether would just improve the level overall. And ACESpark. This level made me physically ill about a minute into it, therefore I am unable to give it a fair review, as I am unable to play it. It was a very clever idea, but somehow in execution it's unbearable. You have too much motion going on, I think, is the problem, and vertical motion is not something certain people suffering with motion sickness can deal with. I'm kinda glad we caught this early. We don't want to make the playbase unwell. So, yeah, obviously the stage had its problems with that. Basically what they said about the gimmick, it's pretty much my main thought there, is that it's an interesting idea in thought, but in practice, it's just kind of annoying to get uncontrollably bounced into enemy attacks that you have no way to dodge. So, that's kind of a problem. Also, kind of a problem that it makes some people just unable to play it, period, because of the motion sickness. An interesting idea, but maybe should have been thought through a little bit more. Next we had 22nd place, Spoony Bard OL, Aurora Man. Snow and Pyro. Really nice level. The level has a very good difficulty curve, and there's some very interesting and surprisingly difficult setups dealing with the Shadow Man platforms. I love how they were used in tandem with the Crystal Joes. They present nice, rhythm-y challenges. I think the one issue I really would have with the level is the two rooms where you drop down onto Shadow Man platforms. I didn't get killed by the rooms, but I feel like I got lucky. It seems very easy for a player to be dropped down into spikes if they're not positioned exactly right, and it requires very quick reaction time to react to the fact that you're falling onto spikes, as well as to immediately jump off the Shadow Man platform. Other than that, this level is pretty good, and I love the aesthetics. Very solid level overall. Jupy Hornet. This level was meh. The graphics were nice, Aurora effect could use some work though, but there were some design flaws. A few sections dropped you into a room on top of platforms that open up underneath you while having to dodge enemy attacks. there wasn't really enough time to react without using the flash stopper. The rest of the level was pretty uneventful, although there were some nice platforming challenges with the red platforms. Angel. Pretty nice and simple level. Does a fairly good job at introducing all of its elements and looks really nice. I feel like the enemy placement in this stage occasionally gets rather wacky, with areas near the middle of the level being more challenging than setups towards the end. But the challenges themselves are nice and fun to play through. I feel like the level was in its design somewhat limited by its city theme, and that shaping the surrounding area based on the design would have allowed for some more creative segments overall. Still, fun level. Gariri. Absolutely fantastic stage. The level design is rock solid, and it was ultimately a very enjoyable experience. Not to mention, the visuals look absolutely marvelous. I would have liked if the level had a boss like the title suggests, but that's certainly no big deal, especially when we have a stage as good as this. ACESpark. Another boss corridor, another lack of Robot Master, or any sort of climax at all. This was disappointing, especially with the level name. You really needed a boss. The main issue with this level is it looked great, it sounded great, and that was it. There was so little interesting going on that it is overall quite forgettable. The fact that only one gimmick was used is also a real blow to the stage. There wasn't much creativity here. There's a lot there in the dev kit. Use it. The only real highlight of the stage was the Noble Nickel, but one creative spot does not a creative stage make. The enemy selection was also all over the place, with little cohesion, as if they were chosen at random at times. Very forgettable, not that fun, so I'm not terribly impressed, sorry, but still the level wasn't bad, just not terribly interesting. Overall, I feel like this was a good solid stage. It just maybe needed a little more polish to really put it over the top. I'm a sucker for that kind of aesthetic. I love snow and Aurora-themed levels. But yeah, I would have loved to see Aurora Man and what he would have been like. And finally, we had 21st place, Gone Sovereign's City Under Siege. Snow and Pyro. Okay, what the heck, you somehow took City War and Sunset Siege and combined them and made a pretty good level out of them? I know Sunset Siege was a Mag Mammal 1 stage. I honestly forget which one it was. Seriously, this level is really good. I like the whole setup of the level, and the intro part is pretty interesting with setups like Sparkman platforms and gachapons. I think it plays really well. Also, woo, slopes. Then there's a freaking Mega Man 8 Rush Jet part. Even though it's not like the most creative use of it ever, it's still really fun, and I like that a lot too. Then you have the City War section, which I really like too. I really love your usage of new shopmans here with them above ground. Also, I totally got fooled by that camouflage metal. Most of this level, I just really love how it plays, and I find it super fun. I think there are two things that bring it down for me though. I don't like the usage of Sniper Joes here, they just seem to be placed to waste your time. And also, it seems that for this level only, their weakness to Slash Claw was drastically toned down for some ungodly reason. Also, the Mecha Dragon fight. Mecha Dragon just really isn't that fun to fight in general, really. Also, it's really easy to get instantly dropped into a pit when entering the boss room, because there's no way to tell where the platforms are going to be. So, first time I got there, I veered to the left for whatever reason, and got dunked into a pit. But it's just two flaws in an otherwise pretty good level. Great job here. Chippy Hornet. I was expecting a City War sequel when I saw this level's name, and that's kinda what I got. It's like City War, but with better graphics and without all the holes. Seriously, the graphics in this level are great. I really liked some parts, like the Rush Jet section. However, this level has a pretty ridiculous difficulty spike towards the end. Literally, you spammed spikes in that vertical section. And that Mega Dragon boss it really ruined the level. Mega Dragon on conveyor belts just isn't fun. Angel. This level's city area is very beautiful. I really like how it looks, very authentic. However, it doesn't really feel good to play. I get the feeling the level's design was influenced by its aesthetic, which ended up making it feel rather dull, having to rely on a quantity of hazards in order to ramp up the challenge, rather than a clever combination of them and mutation of setups. There could have been more done with the illusion blocks, which I found to be an interesting gimmick that got introduced but unfortunately went largely unused until the end of the stage. The boss is not a lot of fun to play, since standing on either of the left platforms sees the player tumbling to their death as soon as they get hit. The shmup segment would have been a lot better if you didn't let the player face left, too. Gariri. Very good level. The level design is creative and solid, and there are no cheap spots, with the only problem maybe being the large amount of Sniper Joes. I also like the mini-plot and how the level looks, although the latter could be a bit better. While the Rush Jet section is quite annoying, for me the biggest experience ruiner is the boss, and how hard it is to not fall off the moving platforms. Besides that, it remains a very enjoyable level. And ACESpark. Oh no, war has returned to the city, but at least this time workmen had patched in the holes. I mean, there might have been some lawsuits involving that. Pleasant enough stage, really. It's clear a fair old whack of effort was taken to make this place look like an actual city, even if the tile set doesn't really suit Mega Man at all. The stage didn't do much in the way of anything original, but I have to admit, the concrete man blocks were pretty well handled, and you usually had me going, huh, neat, every so often. I also loved how these were introduced, probably better than Capcom themselves introduced the gimmick if I'm honest. The Sparkman platforms got some good usage here, and you slowly increased the difficulty in logical ways. Cool. The Rush Jet segment was a little weird. The lack of obstacles in that area, and just enemies, made it a little dull. Things the player is required to outright dodge rather than shoot could have made this more interesting. Not bad, though. Enemy selection worked, the stage was mostly a nice pleasant stroll, and nothing of note stands out. That might just be the level's issue. Generic and just sorta there, but it's a nice sort of there after all. Also, hi Durgan. He managed to be the hardest portion of the stage, mostly due to how easy it is to be knocked into a pit by his fireballs. Stage was fine overall, definitely can see the effort that went into it though. So, this stage for the most part, yeah, it was fine. But yeah, for me, the boss was kind of a deal breaker. The fact that you can easily die just upon entering the room if you don't enter the room just right, how easy it is to get dumped in the pits by the moving platforms, and then having to play energy element pachinko to actually finish the stage, that was a bit of a thing. That could have used a bit more playtesting, I think. Otherwise, the stage was pretty good. The Rush Jet segment was maybe a little empty, but still pretty decent all around. With that, though, that's where we're going to call it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I shall see you again next time. Until then, fare thee well.